Drew Bledsoe is the exact type of player and person upon which you want to build this new company. He's like he was the first pick in the draft. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Welcome to the second episode of the Athletes First Family Podcast quarterback series. I'm Brian Murphy, CEO of Athletes First, back with my co-host AJ Stevens, VP of Client Strategy, and as we found out, maybe the best negotiator in the business.
Thanks, Murph. Happy to be back for a second episode. We're talking about Athletes First dominance in the quarterback market and quarterback contracts. And right now, we currently have $1.4 billion of quarterback contracts on the books at A1. So obviously, we're going to talk about our dominance that way because it's the most that any agency has in the NFL right now. But in this episode specifically, we're going to go back to the beginning of Athletes First. We're going to have you explain to me how all these landmark quarterback deals started, how they have progressed to the deals that we've done more recently, and the lessons that you've learned along the way. Those early experiences obviously set the foundation for Athletes First success, so I can't wait to hear them.
Yeah, and we did these deals without you, which is like unheard of now, right? But I'm not sure if you were born back then. But as you know, Athletes First has done the top NFL quarterback deal 12 different times, right? We're going to, in this episode, go back to the first time. And so we'll go back to the very beginning of Athletes First, which was 2001. So I had started as a sports agent in 1999, worked for Steinberg, Moran & Dunn, largest agency in the world at the time, and worked there for about 2 years. And in February 2001, Dave Dunn and I decided that we're going to leave SMD and start Athletes First. We had a good experience at SMD. It was a really scary decision to leave this massive, hugely successful company. It was had sold itself to a publicly traded company up in Canada, but we just thought that maybe we could do things a little bit differently. We could do things maybe a little more athlete first focused and build like what we thought of like a family value, like a family philosophy, as opposed to maybe a transaction-based philosophy.
So really taking it from a big organization to a smaller, more client-faced entity.
Absolutely. And again, remember, I had no idea what to do starting a business. I was a psychology major, litigator. So this was like rolling the dice. And I just rolled the dice 2 years earlier, leaving my very high-paying job as a lawyer at Ropes & Gray, moved to California with my wife who was 7 months pregnant to become a sports agent, right? And so now 2 years later, it's working out pretty well. Let's go all back in, throw the money in, and try it again. So,
and for the viewers at home, your wife is still with you
after
turning down big jobs twice.
No doubt. So we decided to roll the dice. And, at the time, it was funny. So we left in February 16th, 2001. At the time and now, Dave Dunn was super close with Drew Bledsoe. And Drew Bledsoe is the exact type of player and person upon which you want to build this new company. He's like he was the first pick in the draft. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And just a super person. I mean, comes from a great family, is a great family. Like we had hired his future sister-in-law, to be one of our 5 first staff members. So, Drew Bledsoe is like the perfect person to start a new company with, right? So we left SMD and we announced our departure. That's all you can do. You can't go, hey, come with it. Say, hey, we're starting a new company, Athletes First. Here we are.
So there was no who's coming with me?
No Jerry Maguire moment. Despite leaving the office in which Jerry Maguire was filmed, Lee's office. But anyways, we left and, we thought people want to join us. They would give us a call. Certainly thought Drew Bledsoe would be the first one calling. Hey guys, hey Dave, I want to join you. Yeah, didn't call us on day 1. Didn't call us on day 2. Didn't call us on day 3. So we're sitting there like, Dave, like, are you sure this is a good idea to go start a new agency? Like it's family focused. We're going to be great at quarterbacks, but Drew's not even calling us. So that was panic mode from the beginning. Turns out in the story, Drew was on a remote ski trip, like helicopter skiing and whatnot, and had no cell service, had no idea that we had left the place, and had no idea that Dave and I had started our own company. So
for the record, helicopter skiing is definitely something that voids a player's contract in the NFL.
Yeah. We haven't got to his contract yet, you know what I mean? I guess probably he had his rookie contract. But so Drew came back and they called Dave and Dave got him up to speed. And, Drew Bledsoe became our first client. And it was, I think just this past month or two, we signed Scott Hansen to a broadcast, from Red Zone. I was telling Scott, Scott, this is one of our biggest signings since Drew Bledsoe because as Scott is to broadcasters, Drew Bledsoe was to NFL quarterbacks at the time. So that was great. The other part of leaving, which is kind of funny, is that When we left, I was under the impression I had been told that there was this big businessman in Boston who's going to write a $3 million check and help us start Athletes First. This was a couple weeks after we left, and so I actually literally got a piece of paper, a napkin that said like $3 million, 15% equity, with a name and a number. And I didn't know what it meant, but I knew we needed money to run a company. So I called the number, and the guy answered. He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Hey, Murph here, Brian Murphy. Partners with Dave Dunn. Friends with various people, including Drew. And told that you want to write us a check for $3 million and invest in Athletes First." And he said, What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I don't know, but like, we started the new company, we need money, so I don't know how you get me $3 million. You like send it out, you want me to come pick it up, you want me to write a check for it, or not?" And I have no idea how to give you 15% equity. LLC is not even created yet, but like, let's just agree that that's what we're going to do. And, the details are a little bit hazy. It's been a long time ago, but I'm almost positive the guy said to me, "Hey, listen, good luck to you. I think Dave is phenomenal, but like, I'm in the process of buying the Boston Celtics, so I can't buy the Boston Celtics and a sports agency at the same time, and that was my last conversation with Wick Rosbeck, who did indeed buy the Celtics and is now selling them at this time. But good decision. As successful as Athletes First was or is, I think Wick probably made a good decision. I have no idea if he had any clue what I was talking about at the time, but that's how we started Athletes First with Drew on a ski trip and Wick Rosbeck saying he wasn't going to invest with us. And so that started like a year-long process, like I'd say over 100 meetings looking for people to invest, because Dave and I didn't have anybody. Dave had a little bit. I had none.
So while you're doing this,
Yep.
basically trying to find investors, going around trying to find anyone who's willing to invest in this company that doesn't have any clients, some clients.
Very few. And one's a potential client on a ski trip, and then a couple other clients. And then one thing we had without question was massive litigation coming down the road. So it wasn't the best investment.
Right. So you're trying to find investors. You're still trying to run a sports agent.
Yep.
Start one from the ground up, essentially.
Yep.
And so how does that go?
Yeah. I mean, we're operating out of Dave's living room. There's like 4 or 5 of us there. And like you said, Drew Bledsoe joined, and Drew had been at SMD with us, and we've been trying to work on his contract, or they've been trying to work on his contract for a long time. Lee Steinberg had tried, Jeff Moore had tried, both amazing agents. It just didn't work. And so when Drew came to Athletes First, that again, probably mid-February, our first order of business was to get his contract done. And in fact, I think it was like maybe the first contract we ever did at Athletes First was Drew's veteran deal, which, as you know, you weren't alive then, but that was the largest deal in NFL history. He obviously was the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. So we've done it 12 times since. But that first one, during his ski trip, I didn't know if it was ever going to fruition, but it was a huge moment. I mean, it was a month into Athletes First. It was a huge deal at the time, and we were pretty proud. But like, huge deal at the time, what we did this past year, I kind of compare those two.
Right. So February is when Drew finally says he's willing to come on Athletes First. He's going to be your first big client anyways.
Yep.
1 month later, March 17th, 2001, and I was alive, by the way, Drew Bledsoe signs the largest contract in NFL history. It's a 10-year, $103 million contract, averages just over $10 million per year. At the time, that's massive, right?
Well, if you had been with us at the time, and we're going to talk about this in subsequent episodes, but like, how would you have felt about the 10-year deal?
I would have cringed pretty hard at the 10-year term. We talk a lot about trying to get back to the market as soon as possible. And one of the reasons we do is because when you signed the deal in 2001, the salary cap was $67 million. So Bledsoe's deal takes up about 15% of the salary cap then.
Yep.
If we fast forward a few years, the salary cap has gone up so much over each year because and the way we look at deals is as the salary cap increases, we expect NFL contracts to increase with it. Correct. And especially with quarterback deals where we've seen the value of the quarterback position rise exponentially since 2001. It was running backs were getting drafted super high back then. Now it's almost strictly quarterbacks that are going to get drafted high and paid the highest. And the percentage that is given to the top quarterbacks has gone up exponentially as well. So when we talk about Dak Prescott in a few episodes, we can compare his contract. 23 years later, he's making $60 million per year instead of $10 million per year.
6X.
And it's a 23.5% of the current salary cap, which is $255.4 million. It's going to be a little bit bigger here coming up in 2025. But then just looking at the landscape of all veteran NFL players, there are 225 of them who make at least $10 million per year or more.
Wow.
So at the time Drew Bledsoe signs this deal, it's record breaking, biggest in NFL history. Fast forward 23 years, and there's 225 NFL players who are making more on an annual basis
Wow.
than Drew's deal.
That's crazy. That we're going to talk about this in a subsequent episode, but like Drew's deal, amazing deal, a huge, unbelievable deal, right? And I think you said 103 million. Let me just throw out something. What was Justin Herbert's first year cash flow in his new year?
Yeah, and so we're going to talk about this one in an episode or
Yeah.
two from now. And in Justin's first new year of his extension, first year of his extension,
Yep.
he will have earned $100 million of new cash in that first new year.
Okay.
So 1 million or 100 million in 1 year versus 103 million in 10 years. It's changed quite a bit in that
That's
time.
amazing. Now, I mean, at the time, $100 million was a lot from for a kid from Walla Walla, Washington. And as you may or may not know, Drew has gone on to do amazing things off the field. It just is just an amazing person, great businessman, great wine company he has, our own vineyard. So he's fine. But I mean, that's crazy that Justin Herbert 1 year cash flow, new money, the same as Drew's 10-year deal.
Right. I think that's crazy to look at the quarterback landscape over the years. But just going back to Drew's story, because this is
Yeah.
one that, I was born, but I was 11 years old.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I don't remember exactly how this played out, but I do know the name Tom Brady quite well.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
and Tom Brady, shortly after you did this deal, Wally pipped Drew.
Yeah, well, I pipped. Yeah, I mean, so I think the story kind of is a microcosm of the overall 24-year journey athletes first had. Because imagine this, like, I mean, just the change of emotions, roller coaster. Like, start a new company, super excited. The one person we thought would definitely join, Drew Bledsoe, we don't hear from him. You know what I mean? So like we almost like should we go back? Should I go back to being a lawyer? Like, if Drew doesn't want to work with us, who will? Then he calls, and we're all excited. And then he's a starting quarterback for the Patriots. I grew up in New England, in Boston. My wife grew up in Foxborough, like 5 minutes from the stadium, and we do the biggest deal in NFL history, and we're all excited. And when Drew's going, I did a marketing deal with him. Papagino's, my favorite pizza place. I'm like, this is the dream. Like, yeah, we got all this litigation, but this is the dream, the utopia. And then I think it was in November, or no, September. It was in September. Drew's, as a lot of people know, Drew Bledsoe was playing against the Jets. Got hit very hard on the sidelines. Get rushed to the hospital. Really bad injury, right? The money's not important at that point. His health was in the injury, but he obviously came back and played later in the year. But yeah, you're right. Tom Brady came in, became the starter, led the Patriots to the playoffs. I'm so torn. Like I no offense to Tom, but I really wanted Tom to lose, or I didn't want him to get hurt, but I wanted him to lose, and so Drew could come back. And Tom led him to and this is before the whole dynasty began. Led him to the playoffs, and then you may not remember. Tom actually got hurt in the AFC Championship game against Pittsburgh in the first half, and Drew Bledsoe came out and boom, 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 touchdown at the end of the first half, and he was just Drew like rifling bullets and everything like that, and led him to a victory over the Steelers, so they go to the Super Bowl. And then there's all kinds of questions, probably not by like the media and whatnot. Like, is Drew going to start? Is Tom going to start? Drew going to start? Tom going to start?
Pretty pivotal moment in Bill Belichick's coaching career there
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe if Drew had started Super Bowl, they would have won by more and won 10 Super Bowl. I don't know, but it's obviously he went with Tom, and Tom won the Super Bowl, and then I think he won 7 more, including one for your Buccaneers later in the year. But I tell you what, it was a huge lesson for us, and I tell Drew this every time I see him. Like I would not have the life I have but for Drew Bledsoe. Athletes First would not be here but for Drew Bledsoe. And he always says, like, Drew, like, no, Murphy, you're full. I'm like, no, Drew, I'm telling you. And like this season with Drew, and he was super close with Dave Dunn, and I was just like the young associate, like falling around carrying their bags and whatnot. But you watch Drew, and it's easy. Take your bag, take your ball, go home. It's easy to gripe about it. Man, he supported Tom so much. As he said, Tom asked him for a lot of advice. He gave it to him. He wanted Drew to be the best. He wanted Tom to be the best he could, because he knew the better Tom was, the better team was. And like Drew, number one pick, the highest paid player in the league, taking a step back and saying, hey, Tom, let me do everything I can to make you successful. Never griping about it. I'm sure there's, private moments with him and Dave Dunn where he spoke his mind a little bit. But man, it's one of the Athletes First philosophies that we're going to talk throughout the series is like, do the right thing, for the right reasons, with the right people. And that was all Drew Bledsoe. That's what Drew Bledsoe did. I watched it work. And then the other thing is he surrounded himself with family. always surrounded himself with family, treated his team like family, treated Tom like family, but he had two great parents, brother, everything like that. We treat us like family. I think, when you go through those hard times, you want to be surrounded by family. You want to be surrounded by people like Drew Bledsoe. So, yeah, none of this, we're not here without Drew Bledsoe. Funny story about his family, though. Mac Bledsoe, phenomenal guy, played the guitar at one of our company retreats, where company retreat at the Bledsoe, mansion up in Montana. But, fast forward several years to another Patriot client that we represented, Aaron Hernandez, right? And Aaron's in jail and back in Boston, and I put together his legal team. And I went to visit Aaron Chico in jail, and as I wait in the waiting room, look around, and there's only one book in the whole waiting room. There's like 20 copies of this one book, and it was Parenting with Dignity by Mac Bledsoe. What are the chances? Like, this is like a sign from God or something like that. Like, just bizarre. But so, I'm very thankful to Drew. He's taught us a lot, continues to support us. We continue to work for him, and we're very lucky to have him part of the Athletes First family. Not part, the founder basically of the Athletes First family.
There was a lot to unpack there. We could probably do a whole episode on.
Yeah.
But I do want to, acknowledge, you start off with this record-breaking veteran deal, but the business that, we are in, it starts first and foremost with helping the college athletes make that transition from, being the college athlete into being a NFL player, which is a full-time job. You go from student athlete to full-time football player. And those are very formative years for these clients, right?
Yep.
And you're helping them make that transition, get adjusted, become a fully grown adult with a lot of money all of a sudden. So how is that going while you are transitioning into this new agency?
Yeah. And I'm 29 years old myself, right? I mean, so I
Right.
don't really know how to be a full adult, but no, so we started the company in February 2001, and we had some players in that draft who had come over, like Gary Baxter was in that draft, went on to be a great safety. But 2002 was our first NFL draft. And as you know, like, your agencies are really defined by the draft classes. Why we're so proud we've had, for the last 5 years, we had more first rounders than anyone. But we're new, right? We're new, and we're facing this litigation. And, as long as Dave Dunn had done this, he was always in Lee Steinberg's shadow. So this is Dave's first time out in front and center in front of everybody. And, everyone's spreading nasty rumors about us, and we're going to be, bankrupt. They're going to, take us away, whatnot. So we just went and fought the fight. And it's funny, we talked about Justin Herbert earlier, Oregon quarterback. Back in the day, 2002, our big recruit was Joey Harrington. Joey Harrington, the Oregon Ducks. I don't know if you remember this, but they had the Heisman campaign, put his picture up on the, in Times Square, on the big building, billboard and everything. He's everywhere, Joey Harrington. We got super lucky. Joey Harrington picked Athletes First, and I think probably at the time he picked us based on what we knew. We hopefully he's gonna be a first rounder. We thought he'd be a first rounder, but maybe mid to late first round. But as the process is unfolding, Joey's just Joey. He's just, everyone doing the interviews. Everyone loves him. He's throwing the ball like no one's business. He's just, even to you look at Joey, like, okay, this is a perfect human being, right? In many ways, right? So everything's going great, and we're enjoying it. But then something happened. It was very unusual. The number one pick of the draft that year was going to be David Carr, right? Houston was a new team. They were taking him. There's no surprises about it. And then David Carr suddenly fired his agent, and I don't know why, but he fired his agent, and his manager reached out to us and said, "Hey, would you guys like to represent David Carr? He'd be interested in meeting with you and talking to you guys. And, I think you guys have a good shot." And we're like, what do you mean? We're going to have the number one pick in the draft? Right. Their first real draft. First you get the Bledsoe, and then this is like too good to be true. Right. But players coming out of college, they worry about the conflicts, right? They worry about, hey, listen, am I your guy? If you have too many people at any position, who are you going to be pushing? And, the reality is you don't really push either one of them. In 24 years.
And this is when you're still a very small company, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now that we've got to the point where we are as big as we are, we have so many different agents that can represent multiple different quarterbacks in the same draft class.
Absolutely.
And it's really about, we're able to share information that helps them all.
Yeah.
better.
But here it's really Dave. Right. Dave was the guy. So, so we say, what? Athletes first. Like, we got to put athletes first. Let's talk to Joey about it, see how he feels about it. Let's just not go make this decision, this business decision that has personal impact. So we sat down, we talked to Joey, and like I said, Joey was like the perfect human being at the time. And he said, "Hey, listen, go ahead." And Joey's also super smart. He's like, "I understand having the number one pick in the draft, your first draft. Like, I get that, and hopefully I can be the second pick or the third pick. He ended up being the third pick to the Detroit Lions. But he's like, I get it. I understand, like it wasn't what I expected when I signed with you guys, but I'm not going to get in the way. And so he gave us green light, but we sat down and we said, all right, listen, it's like a year after we started. We started this company, put the athletes first. There's no way Joey thought we were going to sign David Carr. Maybe he would have made the same decision. Maybe he wouldn't. But it's not the right thing to do. We really want to do it. You know what I mean? And it wasn't about Joey. I mean, it was about Joey because he was the person there at the time. But he gave us green light. He said, okay, go do it. He supported it. Was supportive of it. But we're like, this is our first real test about whether we're always, we're going to have that blind adherence to putting the athletes first. And there'll be other opportunities. We hope. We had no idea. We didn't even know if we could survive the lawsuit, right? But let's kindly pass. Thank David and his business manager for the opportunity. Unbelievable opportunity. Another great guy. But let's just put all of our focus on Joey and do the best we can for Joey, and see what happens. And Joey ended up being the number 3 pick in the draft. Went to Detroit Lions. Still have a great relationship with Joey. Honored him at the Athletes First Classic not too many years ago, and it was absolutely 1,000% the right decision at the time. And now,
awesome. So you pass on the number 1 overall pick that year.
Yep.
You still have the top 3 draft pick in Joey Harrington.
Yep. Joey Harrington, I think
and
number 4 too, and Mike Williams, Buffalo Bills, and yeah, I mean it was.
So
good year.
you have the ball rolling here.
Yeah.
Do you then subsequently sign a first overall pick? Do you get another chance at a quarterback that goes number 1?
Yeah. So it was. I mean, it was the right decision without question. I mean, it was when the draft came and we saw David go number 1. It was like, it would have been fun to be there, right? But
that's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
so
it
to
is.
represent the first overall pick in the draft, and you just passed it up.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Is there a second chance in your life?
Right. Yeah. And so you move on to the next draft and everything, and we got real lucky. The best quarterback in that draft grew up about 15 minutes from our office. Carson Palmer. Went to USC, dominated USC. Just had a sensational senior year. Won a big bowl game, won the Heisman Trophy, and then decided that he's going to join the Athletes First family. So many meetings. One of our associates, Carmen Wallace, literally got locked in a bathroom while Dave did the whole meeting. Couldn't get out.
Did Dave lock Carmen in the bathroom?
I don't think he did on purpose. No, Carson might have, but no. And so it's a good point, AJ. So the next year we had the number 1 pick in the draft, Carson Palmer, and again, incredibly blessed, and yeah, all the good things I say about Joey. Same thing, Carson. I remember Trent Dilfer telling me that, if God was going to make a quarterback and put him down in front, he's like, this is what a quarterback should be. And it'd be Carson Palmer. So we got lucky, and it was great. Probably one of the best things we ever got, Carson Palmer, was he also later introduced us and convinced us to represent his real close friend from USC, Matt Castle, who didn't even play in college, but we ended up signing Matt Castle. Well, that's another whole story, but became good family friends with him and loved the guy, and everyone loves Matt Castle. So that was a byproduct of the Carson Palmer story, but a good part of it.
And I think this, even the beginning of Athletes First, you can kind of see that the quarterback position was just integrated in how everything started here.
Yeah.
And was a big part of the momentum that got the agency going.
Absolutely. I think part of that is because, Dave Dunn did spend a long time with Lee Steinberg, and Lee Steinberg represented a lot of quarterbacks, and then Tom Conlon came along at IMG, and he represented Peyton, and Tom started representing a lot of quarterbacks. So, I think Dave grew up in a quarterback, focused agency, and he had a lot of success in it behind the scenes. So definitely that was a way to start.
So you mentioned Carson Palmer. You represent him in the draft. You represent him as you come up on his veteran contract.
Yep.
And I'm sure you have some good stories to go with this, but when he did his contract in 2005,
his veteran contract,
yep. He becomes the highest paid quarterback in NFL history once again.
Yep.
This time
number 2.
It's a
our
deal.
Second one, yeah.
It's a deal worth just over $16 million per year. So again, comparing it to the contracts nowadays, it pales in comparison. But at the time, it's massive. It's top of the market. And I think the craziest part of this, as I researched this is all before my time in the NFL, but the craziest aspect of Carson's deal is that it stayed in the top 10 of all quarterbacks until 2012. Wow. So in 2012, he was still the 9th highest paid quarterback or player in the NFL.
7 years later.
7 years later, he's still the 9th highest. And you think about it nowadays where, we're going to go through all of the quarterback deals, And, Justin Herbert's deal is only 2 years old, and he's been bypassed by a couple of our clients itself. So
Yeah.
three of our clients have bypassed Justin Herbert's deal, which was record breaking 2 years ago.
Yeah, that is amazing. That's yeah, no, it was a great deal. Phenomenal deal, and we were proud of it. The crazy thing about the deal, the crazy thing about the deal is that we uh we negotiated the deal with the Bengals, right? And the Bengals, as you know, are owned by the Brown family. And so now you're dealing with, Katie Blackburn, Troy Blackburn, Katie was Mike's daughter, right? And so it's like their family owns the team, and so in many ways their family owns the money. Like, so they're negotiating with their own money. They've been around for the Brown family been on for a long time, and they've seen, like, they saw what Drew Bledsoe got a 100 million, and that was so much money. And now you're saying that, like, instead of 10 million, it should be 16 million. And so it was, I believe, it was personal with them in a good way, right? They weren't negotiating with someone else's money or for someone else's team. It was their team. And so the numbers we were talking about were big numbers, but Carson was that good, and so we stuck with it. We stuck with it. We stuck with it. And we got the deal done on December 29th. December 29th, he becomes the highest paid player in NFL history, right? He'd had an amazing season. I think he had 32 touchdowns, led the league. He had a 101 quarterback rating, which was highest in Bengals franchise history. They go to the playoffs. He completes a 65-yard pass to Chris Henry. We now represent, unfortunately, Chris passed, but we now represent his sons. And as he completes a pass, someone tackles him with the knees, blows his knees out, and he's done for the season, right? And that was on January 7th, January 6th or 7th, something like that, like
Mhm.
less than a week later, So again, just like these, we've done now two record-setting deals, right, for quarterbacks in like 3 years, both followed by injuries, almost immediately, which is just crazy.
Yeah, and I guess injuries are, it's a nature of football.
Yeah.
And you always want to try and strike while the iron's hot. I think that's something that a theme that we talk about all the time is, if it's time and a player is set to get the top of the market for him, that's when you want to strike and get the deal done, because you never know when the next play is going to have someone land on your knee wrong,
Yeah.
or a hit to the head nowadays that, we're obviously so cognizant of. So I think that's you know,
Oh,
timing is awful. You hate to see the injuries, but
yep.
getting the deal done to secure that is so important.
No, and I think it's you and I went through this a couple years ago, and this may be a different episode, but like when me, you, and Kest and Cam were doing Daniel Jones' deal with the Giants, and there was a real deadline. There was a franchise tag deadline. And I think what I learned from the Drew Bledsoe's deal, which Dave did, and I kind of watched, and then Carson's deal, which we all did together, is that, like, I my philosophy, and we're going to see all of our other agents' philosophy, your philosophy, but my philosophy is like, get the number that you want, get the deal that you want, get the cash flow, whatever it is. Set your targets, right? And then just get after it. And don't worry about, and I know some people like, oh, we sent them an offer, we can't send a second offer. Like, hey, don't call them, we're gonna look too easy. Like, no, I want to get this deal done, and I'm gonna be all in, and I'm gonna call. You don't like that? I'll become a different proposal. I'll come with a different I'll change it. And you kind of saw that with the Daniel Jones negotiation where but that was a real deadline. There was no other way to
Right.
do it, right?
We were problem solvers at that
Yeah,
point. Like,
yeah.
both sides wanted to get a deal done. It was just, how do we get a deal done that is going to make sense for us and for the
Yeah,
Giants?
and I look back to, Drew's deal with New England and think, like, what if we hadn't got that done? Again, it was Dave. What if Dave hadn't got that done before that Mo Lewis hit? You know what I mean? Or with Carson, I mean, that was a really hard negotiation for all the right reasons. And I don't, the Bengals are a phenomenal franchise. They're having a lot of success with Joe Burrow. They're a phenomenal franchise, but it's personal. It's their family money. They've been doing it for a long time. They remember what it used to be. And so I don't blame them at all. I think they did a phenomenal job, but, like, thank God we kept pushing, 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 because I don't know what happens if we don't get that done a week earlier and then Carson gets hurt. Does he get the contract when he comes back? I don't know. I mean, and Carson would have been fine either way because, again, another phenomenal businessman who's done great off the field, had a long, successful career. But, I think back to this whole beginning, the first 3 years of Athletes First, the ups and the downs, and you just gotta, what we learned from Drew, like, just don't change during the ups and downs. And then, it was a phenomenal 3 years. Crazy. I mean, two of the top deals in NFL history. First pick in the draft, Heisman Trophy winner, and a bunch of other stuff going on. So yeah, it was fun, man. So we're gonna end each episode as we do and as we will with the lessons learned. And I as I go back and I look at the beginning of Athletes First, I think one lesson I learned was I made two pretty dumb decisions. Like move to be a sports agent, 7 months pregnant, and then roll the dice again. But you do what you do. I think my lesson learned is I guess I just got to go back. You talk about Joey Harrington, you talk about Carson Palmer, you talk about Drew Bledsoe. I think the lesson learned is that there's so much to learn from everybody, and they were our clients, and we service them and we negotiate for them. We do that, but like just having the opportunity to become friends with them at the time, see how they approach their craft, see how they approach their family. I mean, all three of them huge just big family guys. I guess part of that's it. Like there is room for family and family values in sports. I think a lot of headlines are against that and talk about the negative things, but I look at those three people, franchise quarterbacks, Heisman Trophy winners, Heisman Trophy candidate, then we're picking the draft. And I look at how much importance they put on family and how important family was to them during the good and the bad times. And I think, we rolled the dice in 2001 thinking that we could do a football agency that was family centric and we create a family instead of an agency. But like absolutely 24 years later, I think most of our success is, founded upon that family foundation that those three franchise quarterbacks showed us.
Yeah, that's great. I guess my takeaway is going to be somewhat similar. It's going to use one of our mantras of the agency, and that's putting the athlete first. I have never heard this story about Joey Harrington and David Carr and having to choose, were you going to add a second quarterback in the class? And so hearing your rationale as to why you were going to say no to the first overall pick in the draft, which is for some people, that's a life-changing acquisition as a client, and definitely career changing, and potentially the trajectory of the agency is usually different if you have the first overall pick.
Yep.
But because of your loyalty and your, everything that you had built with Joey, you didn't want to make him feel a certain type of way or any certain negative connotations towards you and Dave at the time.
Yep.
And so just identifying the fact that, these are our moral pillars. We're going to stick to them, and we are going to dedicate it to this one guy who's already committed to us. I think that that speaks a lot to, the athlete's first mantra and what we continue to say today.
Yep. No, and thank God Carson came along the next year, because now I can tell all of our young people, like, hey, if you put the athletes first, you always got Carson Palmer. I mean, maybe we get no one next year, and that wasn't a good philosophy, but like it worked out well. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of that through our podcast. But thank you for going down memory lane with me. It's harking back to the years where we didn't have an AJ, and we still were able to get some deal. I mean, 10-year deal, maybe it wasn't great, but it's going to be a lot of fun, man. So appreciate you listening to my old man stories today, and brought back some good memories. And we're going to be back with episode 3, where we're going to bring in equity partner, super agent, CFO, COO, Justin Schulman. We're talking about his journey from a nice letter, hey, how can I help, to where he is today, and his relationship with Justin Herbert and the record-breaking deal he did with Justin Herbert, where he got as much money in year 1 as Drew got in 10 years.
Yeah. It's crazy to see how that market has moved, and excited to have Justin on here. So thanks for the stories.
All right. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks, man.
All right.